Hello everyone, my name is Zivile and I'm your host, and today we're back with another exciting episode. My guest is Wylonis, who is an entrepreneur and former CMO who has spent over 12 years of scaling startups and advising founders. Today, he is building Beyond, a venture that connects travel with meaningful impact while sharing his journey of presence, family, and purpose with a growing audience on LinkedIn. His work challenges the hustle culture and explores how founders can build with humanity at the core. In this episode of Perception Paradox, we dive into what really happens behind the scenes of entrepreneurship: burnout, ADHD, therapy, and the messy process of rediscovering who you are when the old definitions of success no longer fit. Philip shares how coaching and self-reflection reshaped his path, why motivation must be tied to inner purpose, and what a more human model of work and philanthropy could look like in the age of AI. This is a conversation about identity, resilience, and building with authenticity, both online and in life. So let's dive in. Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Paradox, and today I'm visiting Philip, an entrepreneur, father, professional, innovator, ecosystem player, LinkedIn influencer, and I can continue. Someone who has Lithuanian heritage, and I'm from Lithuania, and yeah, welcome to Perception Paradox.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, and I am Lithuanian-ish.
Lithuanian-ish, but you still haven't been to Lithuania, so I guess it's...
Just invited me, right?
Yes,
so I'm going to finally get a tour.
Amazing.
From a local. Yeah.
100%. Like it's an incredible place right now and very fast growing and changing. All the Baltic states are like now the new Nordics. Okay. Yeah. It's like...
I'll take it.
Anyway, so great to have you here and thank you for
Thanks for coming by.
Hosting and introducing to this beautiful...
It's my co-founder.
The co-founder who is just moral support here and creating the Zen vibes.
Yes.
So I don't know. We met with you 2 years ago during the Kring Hackathon Venture Studio event. And I recall not long after you left on your adventurous sabbatical and then later on entrepreneurial journey, right?
Yeah.
How did you make that decision that it's time to pause and zoom out a bit of the intense workforce?
It was a long time coming, you know, like, and I think I mentioned to you when we met initially that, you know, I have a tendency to be very honest with people from the get-go, sometimes too honest, but just saying that, like, I burned out several times as an entrepreneur. I'd been in entrepreneurship for 12 years and probably burned out 4 or 5 times at different times for different reasons. And at the time when I was in Kring, I was in a transition period where I'd been doing consulting to try and have less hours, to give more space to myself and to my family. But I quickly realized that even though I was working on paper 2 days a week, I was still working 70-hour weeks up here, you know? And so eventually I had to just quit. And it was just an agreement we made at Kring that it was the right time for me to do that, which was the scariest decision of my life because honestly, I've never made that decision before. I've been let go before and forced to do it, but actually making the decision yourself was scary. And then also committing and saying, Philip, this time it's not just on to the next, it's actually a year to take off where I'm not going to do anything. Minimum a year, because I could tell there was something deeply wrong about and lacking alignment inside of myself. I couldn't really recognize who I was anymore. When we met, I was showing up as myself, but also as a person I'd created, you know, over many years, you know, and it's not a person that I particularly like very much. And I think it's kind of like one of those identity crises. You can call it midlife crisis, but like, to me, it was more like a feeling of wearing a costume and not really being able to show up as myself in every interaction. I didn't like it. And when I had children, it became even more an issue, right? Because then you realize how little you are yourself in those little increments when you're really under pressure and don't sleep well. So that's what sparked me to stop, right? It's like those burnouts turned into a depression at one point, like really hit went into a deep hole when I was really under pressure. But that was the best way for me to build myself up again. So it was a really hard decision, and I can keep talking about it, but like that year was filled with lots of interesting things that happened, sitting in silence a lot and just kind of being with myself and realizing how much I didn't really like myself and what I needed to work on and what was my experience like, how should I change myself, all these things. So it's been a lot, but it's been the most meaningful, most important step of my life. And now I'm happy to say I'm in a really, really, really good spot.
Yeah.
Where everything I do is coming from a space of inner purpose and alignment with who I am, which makes me super happy and calm and much more happy in general.
Wow, that's really, really brave, especially after having so many years hands-on entrepreneurial experiences and then finding courage to face the mirror that we usually we're afraid to do. What happened when you actually became free from employment on your own will and you realized that you put yourself right now into a year of experiment? Did you seek for some kind of external guidance, or you tried to find the answers by yourself within?
So I was really fortunate actually to have met my coach around the time when, I think it was after that we met, where I was really not feeling well and I started reaching out. And then it was very random that I stumbled upon Ed, my coach, who had been coaching a bunch of people that I knew indirectly. So I had him bi-weekly as a sounding board. But ultimately, like every hour, other than that 2.5 hours I spent with him, was with me alone, not doing anything between the hours of 8 and like 3 until the kids got picked up. And in the beginning, it was probably the first 3-4 months were the toughest of my life, I think, because it was like, well, actually, that's wrong to say. It was actually not the toughest of my life. It was just that I started to realize that I was filling time after a while. So like the first 3 to 4 months, I was just fucking running around, just trying to find things to do, like projects, and desperately trying to fill that space and gap of time that I had. And after a few months in the coaching and stuff, I came to realize, or ask the question as to, why am I doing that? What is it that I'm running from? Why do I feel like I fill up the time with projects? And that's what led me to go to get an ADHD diagnosis, which explains a lot. But it also encouraged me to go to therapy and like talk about a lot of things that I hadn't really from the past that I hadn't really faced. And that's what actually led me to start opening my eyes a little bit and becoming way more mindful about what I'm thinking. So basically observing as being silent and listening to what's going on in my head, and just realizing how fucked up a lot of the things that I was thinking were, and how I would never say those things to somebody else, and realizing that mind and that voice in my head was driving me to do all these things that really wasn't what I wanted to do deep down. And that really was difficult to realize, how I'd spent most of my life doing that, just kind of like filling gaps to avoid really like listening to who I am and what I wanted. Identity crisis, you can call it, right? It's like you don't really know who are you and who are you not, and like everything gets so confusing.
Yeah, I feel like that sounds familiar to many of us nowadays in the society, with so many different options, and the burnout culture is real as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned now that you've got also diagnosed, and you speak a lot about that in public about ADHD. How do you see this whole process of diagnosing ADHD? Was it more for you to understand better your brain pattern? And do you think if you would have known that before, like when you were more in your founder's journey, would you have done some things different way?
I think ultimately, like when your mind is controlling the narrative, the best way that I found, especially through the coaching, was to go down into biology almost, like just fact. And that's why a diagnosis often is so good, right? Because it's fact. It's like there's a difference between what you're thinking of saying, do I have ADHD? Am I doing this because of blah, 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 instead of going into a professional and actually getting on paper, yes, this is how you are. Because then it makes it way easier for you to take that more like, to really look at it objectively and figure out how do I then adjust my life to fit that. And to answer the other part, I actually always kind of deep down knew that. I got diagnosed, or was taken to a diagnosis when I was in high school because my parents were concerned that I wasn't focusing. And it'd been like a tendency that I'd had. And back then they did diagnoses differently, right? It wasn't as much of a broad span. And so I wasn't pinging out extremely enough for me to be arguing to get Ritalin and focus. But I got it anyway. And then when I was taking it, I didn't feel good at all. So I stopped taking it.
Okay.
So I knew deep down there was something there, and that I didn't have the fact on the table was actually what was in the back of my head, carrying that all the time. Like, do I have it? Do I not have it? Like 5-10% of my energy just like in the back of my head worrying about that. And also then concluding there's something wrong with me as a consequence. So it was like the best way for me to approach it was to get it on paper, look at it, and figure out how do I set myself up to be happy, with that, knowing that. And that took time and a lot of conversations with not just myself, but my coach, therapy, like all these things.
How did your daily routine change or evolve when you kind of put yourself on paper? Okay, I do have ADHD to this extent, and what did you do? You did not take medication, or did you?
No. So my decision was definitely to, and I mean, like everybody has their own circumstances. I'm really privileged in the sense that I've made good money in my life, and I also come from a good family. So I could quit, straight up quit, and focus on it. And that's because I knew deep down, I got the diagnosis before I quit, that I needed freedom, space, full space, quiet, for that mind to be something I can hear, right? Because the more distractions I have, the more my focus goes out externally, right? And so the best way for me to deal with it was to be totally with myself. And having that patience, forcing myself to have that patience with myself. While I think a lot of other people who struggle to put money on the table or food on the table wouldn't be able to do that for good reasons. So I'm not encouraging others not to take medication. That's why I understand people would take medication, because they have a fucking life they need to function in, right? But I had the chance to do it differently, and I wanted to try that first, right, before I started medicating myself. And it turns out the environment for ADHD, the environment is key, right? It's like, and the freedom and the space that I got meant that all the actions I took, like I said, the projects, I noticed these things because I was just with myself. And then I came myself to realize, is this productive? Why am I doing that? Instead of having all these distractions that got me away from really thinking about that. And ultimately figuring out yourself has been the key, right? Me actually figuring out, not being told, you're doing this, that, and that wrong, but me figuring out and seeing it myself was what made me live better and more calmly. And that's also why I'm starting a business, right? Because it fits so well with that, right? That I can decide, when do I do stuff? When am I actually motivated? When am I not motivated? And observing that and being very clear with myself and respectful of myself on that.
You mentioned motivation. What's your take on motivation, right? Do we have to do stuff when we are motivated, or it's more about the discipline? I'm always struggling in my life as well, and thinking, okay, so is motivation something that just fluctuates and the discipline win, or motivation is something more related to your inner well-being, where you have your sharp focus and then you optimize it and use it for in those I would call it into those sprints.
I can come off very extreme answering this. So
let's go for it. We're here to explore.
I can be very extreme on this, because it's really been a huge realization for me personally. We even talked about this before we started recording. But for me, like what I've come to discover is, like I even mentioned in the end of what I said before, like is the importance of where actions come from. And when they come from a place of inner alignment and purpose, outer purpose happens on its own, is what I've seen. Is like the more I know what values I have, who I am, and my background, and respecting who I am, the more I focus on every action aligning with that, the more great things happen to me. Where I think a lot of people assume that the more you externally go out and do stuff, the more things happen. And the reason why I'm saying this first is to argue, not argue that I should only do stuff when it's alignment with who I am. I realize not everybody can do that, but I can decide whether, in my case, whether I want to or have to do certain things. And I've just agreed with myself culturally, the business that I want to create, that I want to surround myself with people that align with that belief that I have, which is that I believe that if every action you take as a human being aligns with your inner purpose first, outer results will come. And that's what I'm going to experiment with the culture of this company that I'm building, is that I don't want to measure by hours. I don't want to measure by how hard people say they're working. I want to measure and optimize for inner purpose. I want people to come in that are self-reflective, that say no, that direct communication is the key, right? That they understand that and live that. And it's not a lot of people actually that believe that to be true. Everyone is so sure that the more I do stuff, the better I will perform.
Yeah.
But the biggest experiment I want to do, and which is a lot of people are experimenting right now with like shorter work weeks and stuff. The extreme of that is saying there isn't one at all, that you trust the individual and that you only bring in people to your company that has inner purpose in the belief that they will deliver. So yes, so my point is, you're saying you're jumping back and forth. My belief is that anything that in my mind is I have to do, I will not do that.
So you're kind of very alert of, seems like also a bit of a gut feeling and getting access to your inner mind, which is very hard nowadays when we have so much stimulation happening around us and huge society pressure as well. What is the right way to build a career and how many hours you have to work in order to get there? That's quite interesting to hear. You, to my understanding, coming from the hustling culture, from entrepreneurship, you also had some failures, right? Successes, failures, and now completely rebuilding the way you show up daily for yourself and for others, and the way you build business. So maybe before we go to learn more about your new venture and new adventure, I checked the website and it's already have quite some questions. Let's look back a bit into your entrepreneurial journey and how did it all start? Because it seems you have quite a fascinating portfolio, different positions, different achievements, and you're very public about also the failures you have faced for different reasons. How did your entrepreneurship start? Were you always an entrepreneur, or it came to you?
So I guess I'll start all the way at the end.
Let's start from the beginning.
I hope that I don't go on too much of a tangent, otherwise you'll poke me, right?
Okay.
So I grew up in a McKinsey family, and why I call it a McKinsey family. I don't know if I mentioned this to you already, but my dad was one of the first people to start the McKinsey office out in Copenhagen, here in Copenhagen, the Nordic HQ. And so he worked a lot. He came from a poor family in Pennsylvania, up in the Poconos. His dad was a carpenter, mom was a sewing. So he was the first child in his family to go to get a university degree in like the local university. And his parents were Polish and Lithuanian, by the way, which is where it comes from. And he made it, quote unquote, in the American dream, meaning he moved to Denmark after he was at Bell Labs, and he, became wealthy and successful on paper, right? Had a Danish wife. Had children in Denmark. Very exciting for somebody that came from the middle of nowhere. And that put on a lot of pressure on how he sees the world. And when he got children, I was the middle child, by the way.
Okay.
The one that couldn't focus, and having a big brother and little sister that both went off to Ivy League schools and were super good in school. And there's Philip in the middle, you know, the creative weirdo, you know, that doesn't really sit still. That was tough having a McKinsey father, you know, that's very much focused on education and performance and wealth and accumulation. And then when my mom died when I was 17 from cancer, unfortunately, somebody I had a really close relationship with and that understood that I was different than those. When she died, I basically, oh,
Is it mine or yours?
I think it's mine.
Okay, good. I was
Okay.
like, oh. It's okay, yeah.
Where was I now? So when she died,
Yeah.
my dad quit and ended up being stay-at-home dad. And you can imagine how that worked out for me, right? Because the clash was even more so. He was external then, and then all of a sudden he's there deciding how we should show up in school, how we should show up at school, you know, with extracurriculars, career and stuff. And that clashed, created so many clashes between him and us as children, especially me. And so I ended up trying to live up to his expectations, going to college. He went to the Penn State. I went to the same exact school as him, same exact line as him, electrical engineering, to try and live up to that expectation, even though I didn't know that. And then one day I called from the US and was like, Dad, I'm fucking depressed. Like, I need to come home. And he listened to me for the first time in my life. So I came home. I lived on my friend's couch for a year because he wouldn't support me. The American way is like, you make your own bed. So I worked out in this outlet out of Copenhagen and was really struggling. But then I shifted all my credits to the Danish university here, and then I ended up doing a lot of projects. Now I'm getting to the point. A lot of startups or ideas and next to class, never really went to class, but actually just did these things on the side. And then one day my brother came to me and was, Philip, like, I have $1 billion idea. You have $1 million ideas. And he was like, you should quit your shitty ideas and come on my rocket ship. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. So,
Okay.
And my friend Andreas, who was like a CTO type, software developer, was also very talented. He joined it in too. And we started a company together, BitBay, which was VC backed by Crayandome and Spotify, early investor, and Jesper Buch, you know, and we got $2.5 million of funding and 18 employees over 2.5 years. We were the third fastest growing startup at that time. We were in every media, like plastered all over the place. And our product sucked, retention sucked. And so we never really actually built a startup.
Well, so you were that media fancy startup with no product.
We had a product.
Or you had a product.
We had a product, but our product was horrible.
Okay.
It was, you know, because the thing is, and that's a whole other conversation, is that we built the company from ego and not so much focused on the needs of a customer. What I mean by that is we talked very little to people about the problem that they had, and we didn't build a solution for them and test willingness to pay for that solution. So what we were doing is shooting in the dark. We were like building a hype machine, which is what was modern back then, still so much modern today with AI products, by the way.
Yeah.
But like we got 300,000 users, and I think 1,000 of them maybe were monthly active by the end. So we went bankrupt because the retention was so terrible, because we hadn't built a product that really solved the problem, because we were so focused, I believe, in hype rather than actually providing value to people, which is why I said ego was driving it, you know, and that's what drives, I think, 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs, in all honesty, is ego, even though they wouldn't admit it. And I was one of those people, by the way. So that was where I started with entrepreneurship. And then over time, having been in every different level of a startup and different industries, I just saw the same thing happening again and again and again and again and again. Founders starting for the wrong reasons, not validating properly, not building slowly, but hustling like fucking maniacs all the time. And I lived that for 12 years. And I never really had an exit. And I wonder why. Just to be honest about it, like there's a really good reason why I didn't have an exit and a big paycheck, because I was approaching it the wrong way. And that's why I'm now shifting into a totally different direction, having analyzed people that have been successful and then seeing that and actually thinking, what is it that they're doing differently? These people that are building businesses, not $1 billion unicorns, by the way, but $1 million businesses. What are they doing? How do they show up? How do they build their businesses? And what you realize is it's totally the opposite of what I've been doing for 12 years, which is why I've changed my perspective so much.
Before we get into what you are doing right now different, how did you cope with the failures when the ideas and the projects you were working would not succeed? Would you just bounce back and, okay, let's build something new because you still have this dopamine? Or you would have some kind of also depressed moments trying to, I don't know, figure out what's your worth, because failure can really make you hit the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the more you fail, the easier it is.
Mm-hmm.
How did you befriend the failure?
Didn't, right? And that was part of the issue, right? Is like, and there's two things to it. It's like occupying space, like I mentioned before, is that like that you quickly move on to the next and you don't really reflect about what you've learned and what you've done, you know? That's one thing. And so the thing about Copenhagen is it's a beautiful place, but it's also very small, which means that everyone knows everyone and to a certain extent in the startup scene. And so as soon as FitBay was a huge success on paper, a lot of people wanted me involved very early. So I've never applied to a job over 12 years. They just kind of happened.
Yeah.
And because I'm naturally curious, I just said yes to many different things without really having reflected about what did I learn really from the last and so on. And then every time I joined a company, I would have success, like milestone, until I didn't have one.
Mm.
And then identity crisis would hit and I would tell myself I wasn't good enough. And that would lead to friction between founders, you know, all kinds of issues that I've seen so many times afterwards as well, right? As a consultant, you know, so
Yeah.
there's that combination of just like not doing it the right way and also just not learning, you know, and that's what I would argue is just like, if you don't take time off to really think about what you've done and you recuperate, how are you supposed to really know what you've learned, right? And that's why this year was so meaningful to me, right? It's like I had to, in a year, digest 12 years and 20 startups, right? On top of my own shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but really make sense of it and figure out who did I really like hanging out with and who did it the right way and the wrong way. And really reflecting about that, it took a long time to do, right? But that's why I've ended up with the approach that I have, both with culture, but also now with the startup that I'm doing, that it aligns with inner purpose, that I build it slowly and patiently. And I'm really protecting my time a lot. I actually don't have that many meetings. I have this with you today. But I mean, like, it's like everyone thinks that, oh, this guy must be hustling and be really busy because he has all these followers and all this. Actually, no, I work an hour or two a day, you know, maximum.
Yeah.
And because I'm enjoying it, because it's coming from a place of inner alignment, you know. And so people, they don't quite understand that, you know, which is interesting when you're in it.
I feel like we start understanding that when we either hit the ground or when you, as you were mentioning, right, when you create yourself a space to think and to reflect and to actually zoom out and look on where you are from some outside perspective. And that's very hard to do.
Yes.
When you just every day try to fulfill someone else's expectation and expectations towards ourselves as well, set by the society, fast pace. So
yes.
I feel like it just sometimes we don't allow ourselves to create that space, and then you just get into this never-ending circle, the race. So it's really cool that you found your own way of building the company in your time and space, and that you are also rethering that being sacred of your time, not because you're busy not meeting someone or not having a call, but consciously choosing and protecting the energy you have.
Yes.
And so I find it very important to come for one meeting and show up, rather to be in 5 in a row and being somewhere outside with your mind.
You're nailing it there, right? It's like, we even talked about it earlier too. Like, I didn't eat breakfast today, which was a mistake, by the way. Because the thing is, there's something around how you physically are and mentally are for you to be showing up as your best self, right? And I knew I was having this conversation today. And so I went to bed early yesterday. I also made sure that I'd exercised last week, and I had, you know, And these things accumulate. It's like, it means that I'm 10 times more sharp when I actually have a conversation, where if I hadn't done those things, and if I maybe had eaten breakfast, I would even be even better. I would be even better. But it's just like, I think we minimize that. It's like, and we were talking about it so much before in your case, right? It's like, what do you need as an individual to show up as your best self? And if you need time to recover, which everybody does, whether you're extrovert or introvert, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
Whether you're one or the other, it's like everyone needs to have physical and mental balance and capacity for it to show up. And that's why I don't have a lot of meetings, because I know that if I have 5 hours of freedom, that 1 hour when I actually sit down, I'm 10 times more likely to be efficient and 10 times more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it happen so many times over the last couple of months with my startup.
Yeah.
And like with conversations, and it's just more meaningful. I enjoy it way more,
Totally. I resonate to that so much. Looking myself back into, 5 years back, my calendar would be so packed with the meetings that you should have, nice to have, potentially would lead somewhere, and bullshit. And then when I
get stressed just thinking about,
Me too.
Yeah,
I mean, like if I
up.
can, I try to even avoid using the calendar. I have to block it, and especially working so much external work with the podcasting and events. But if I cannot remember, it means it's not happening. So if I still have this golden rule, if let's say I think about next week and I cannot remember that conversation, meeting, or thing I have to do, it means that it cannot happen.
Yeah,
because I don't have capacity to remember that.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yes.
And even if I will show up there, I'm not going to bring any value, and I'm not going to get any value at all, because I'm not going to be listening. So I've made this golden rule after making a sabbatical myself and having no calendar at all for a year. That was so hard to come back to the calendar.
But then you're also, it's like your hack essentially has been that, right? It's just like, and that's how you can do this. Like I was asking, is like, because you understand that you take so much time in the back so that you can show up. And the problem is nobody sees that other than you, and that's, I think, the issue. I think is a lot of people that don't have that experience and haven't seen that. They all see this offload, on Instagram and all this stuff, but they don't see all the fucking hard work that you're putting into showing up this way. They just assume you're fucking running around all the time. Like
I used to actually.
So did I, right? And
it's wild when I think about it. I love that time, but I wouldn't go back to that rush. It taught a lot, but it's just crazy how much sacrifices you make in terms of your own health, both mental and physical. That it's insane. But then, if not that experience, you wouldn't be where you are with your mind and with everything.
See, the thing is,
different.
That's the ultimate question, right? I don't know about that. I question that sometimes, but it's difficult for me to say. I think if I look back, yes, of course I learned something. But if I were to change something, I would have approached it completely different, if I have to be honest. I would have been way more focused on me first, and then let life happen to me, rather than constantly pushing, for things to happen to me. Things have to happen to me, that restlessness. And ultimately that would have led to me being more focused on 1 hour of laser sharp focus, having the right environment to be in, considering all the things that I also have to deal with, right? I would have been way better off. And I'm just being honest, but it's easy for me to sit and say that now.
Yeah.
But it's something I think about almost every day. It's like that exact question you asked there. It's like, what would I actually have done differently?
So were you that guy who were just always out there in all the social events and just using all the different opportunities for the startup growth and change, or how would you show up back in the days?
At events and stuff?
In daily life with your work?
And I mean, my entire showing up was about the perception of other people rather than me. You know what I mean? So I was more occupied with how would Zivile, see me when I meet her. Low energy, full of shit, like all this, all these things. That's what it was about most of the time. And on top of that, things that I have never said before, by the way, to anyone, is that I dealt with immense social anxiety back a while back, and it's not existing much anymore because of the inner alignment, I think. But I would stand on the bus and think everyone was looking at me.
Oh,
I would be so occupied externally by what everyone else, you know, because I felt so bad inside. But I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was an illness or there was something wrong with me. But ultimately, it was because there was something up here that I was missing, because I wasn't really aware of what I was thinking about, because it was controlling everything. You know, my thinking was controlling everything. So like, yeah, I'm a lost train of thought.
No. We were talking about if you would be doing anything different, and now about how you were showing up in your busy hustling days and how different it is right now. And it seems that you kind of befriended being vulnerable as well, not only in private, but I see it also in public. You're very open about your challenges. So perhaps it's a good transition would be you started sharing your journey as a bootstrapping founder who got also as an ADHD founder online on LinkedIn, and in less than 8 months you grew with an insane growth from 5,000 followers to 14,000 followers, and address many different topics. Is it should I change my personality because of the algorithm, because LinkedIn is punishing you if you don't using the algorithm the right way? And I experienced that myself, and I saw your post about if I should change my narrative and tone of voice to fit the framework of LinkedIn or not. I've been literally having the same dilemma, and so far I did not betray myself, but I was close. I was like, why do I care? But then at the same time, it's just blocking me. What the hell? So how did your whole writing career has started, and the courage to go out there in public?
So again, like, it's quite simple. Well, it's not that simple, but like when I came out of that like period where Philip kind of came through the clouds, kind of almost enlightenment-ish, I started writing a lot, as you know, kind of like the reason why a lot of coaches, therapists would say journaling is an important thing, right? It's like reflecting about what I'm thinking and doing and stuff. And so it actually became like a part of my process, was that it was a reason to show up when I had a lot of time. So it was maybe a project, to be honest. And then the writing itself was a way for me to actually reflect about the things that I was thinking about and putting it in a structure. And that structure allowed me to digest what was it really I was thinking, what does that mean on a daily basis. And I think that sharing that openly on LinkedIn has made other people, kind of like what you just said to me about like, I was afraid of changing tapping into something that's very real that people are thinking about, but don't necessarily write, because maybe they feel like they're losing something, or they seem that, oh, that's too vulnerable, and that's what's been successful to me, right? So what I'm actually most proud about on my work here on LinkedIn is that I've been dedicating that 1 hour of committed time every morning, trying my best to not go above that, because it takes up too much of my time then. But that I went, actually, you said 5,000 to 13,000, but I actually, like 8 or 10 months ago, had what I would argue is 0 followers.
Yeah.
Because anything I posted, I got 1 like, 2 likes, you know? So yeah, I had connections, but were they really connections, or were they just kind of a number that, so I went from there until now almost 14,000, and I get about 200 likes, 200 comments on every single post that I put out, which is what a lot of people that have 100, 200,000 followers have. And the reason why that's the case is because of that sharing from an authentic place, right? Of putting something out there that people relate to, that are actually my thoughts. Like, so it's actually inner purpose, but coming out naturally on LinkedIn has been the key to my success. And I think a lot of people that go to LinkedIn see it as a tool and see it as like, okay, I have to get this output from it. That's what I want out of it. Like, I want events, or I want more podcast listeners, or I want leads, or I want this, instead of showing up and saying, you know what, I'm going to use this tool as a reflective manner, like I would write a book. Not to sell a book. I think the best books that are written are written because that person themselves wants to really reflect about something very deeply. And then it sells well because there's an authentic amount of time and effort put into that piece, right? That's exactly what I'm doing in micro elements, right?
Mm.
And I didn't need to follow a framework like of content or a framework of growth to do that.
Yeah.
It was really just about my mindset. And I've seen a lot of creators have that same experience, actually, that I've met through the platform, that are having that same success, which proves the point that I was making of saying it's about 1 hour of focused effort. It's not about 8 hours cranking on LinkedIn that's going to get you to the results. It's about the right mindset and showing up for the right reasons. That's the key. And I love it. Every day, I actually look forward to it, like in the evenings, like, oh, I'm going to post it. Can't wait until post it next tomorrow. And like actually writing down in notepads about what I'm thinking, taking walks for the purpose of just not having my phone, but just kind of like listening, what the fuck's going on in my head, and writing about it. It's a fucking fun, it's really fun practice. So I'm really enjoying it, you know?
And how does the number game play for you when you see the engagement and the results?
It actually, in different phases of it, it created a lot of pressure, you know, like of like, oh, you know, I can't put that out there, and what will people say, and what if I get in trouble, and blah, 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 you know, second guessing things. But again, because I was reflective, I noticed that happening and realized that it was more external again than internal. And that ultimately anything I put out there, as long as I feel like it's who I am, I don't need to justify it to anyone. I don't need to justify it to you that I use a swear word, like on LinkedIn. Some people will put off by it. I don't give a shit, because that's who I am. And then they can go off and make friends with somebody else. I mean, that's really what I think it's about. It's just like, yeah, it's not letting external opinions and societal beliefs hold you back from doing what you deem to be the right thing to do.
What do you get from writing on LinkedIn?
What I get from it? So what's interesting about it is initially I did it just to have something to do. And I felt like, okay, these reflections that I was talking about with people, actually, directly, I would meet for coffee. These things are actually valuable for people to hear, and it opens up a dialogue. So when I was vulnerable with people down in the coffee shop, talking to them, they were doing the same thing with me. And then I felt, wow, that felt great, you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it on LinkedIn, you know, like sharing it because I felt like it could add value to other people. And then, you know, I'd say 2% of what I put out is what I have in my actual journaling practice. You know, I write a lot, but not for the purpose of LinkedIn only. It's also about reflecting. And I think that's what the power is, right?
Sure. I mean, writing, it's kind of a good therapeutical tool.
Yeah, so I didn't answer your question. So the reason why I do it is because it adds another layer of reflection. So when I put a post out, like the one you saw, you write me on a DM, for example, and say, oh, I saw this post. And then we have a conversation. And that means that we work around it. So it's like you give me context, and then I have a conversation about what did that mean to you and what does it mean to me? And that adds even another layer of reflection to it. So I go away being smarter about that thought, you know? So it's actually like, it's an added layer of journaling almost in a weird fucking way. But it makes me leave and be like, I'm totally clear about that experience and that reflection because I've gone through it so many times and really thought about it. And it's like, it's really mad how cool it is, actually.
And also kind of an extended reflection with the community you're building around you.
Yeah. It really is. It's like you mentioned earlier, your podcast thing, and like it's one of the things you're most proud of because it's coming from a place of actual authentic purpose, inner purpose. It's the same with this, right? It's like the first thing in my life, and I've been through a lot of milestones that I'm proud of because it's not vanity focused. It's about showing up for other people because I believe that to be the right thing to do. That's who I am, you know? And so I'm not doing it for those purposes primarily. Obviously, I can't help that ego plays a role, but it's not any of my primary reasons to be doing it. And being aligned with that on a daily basis and reminding myself of that is what's keeping me going. Like, I think what's keeping you going is this feeling that you're like learning something and you're meeting new people. It's just like, that's what it feels like to me.
And but talking about ego, I mean, ego can be your biggest enemy, but also can be your friend. So it's not necessarily perhaps can be a negative thing.
Yeah.
if you use it the right way.
Yes.
It's something that pushes you as well forward and allows you to grow.
If you're honest about it,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I am doing this from ego, that's okay. As long as it's not what's
yeah.
controlling everything, like then to me it seems like it's okay.
It's all about the intention and
Yes.
the purpose, right?
Yeah.
And talking about intention, so after reflecting on your 12 years of hustle and roller coaster called entrepreneurship, you came to a place where you found your space for a new business opportunity. Seems it's a lot into the nonprofit field, side direction as well. Maybe you can share more about Beyond and how did that come into your mind and what you're trying to change here.
My hope is that this will be my next thing that I'm going to be super proud about, right?
Okay.
And the reason why is because it also came from a place of authentic experience and like inner purpose. And I talked to you about like all the burnouts that led to depression, right? And when I got really depressed, I started looking back at my childhood and being like, who was I really back as a child? And that child back in the day dreamed of working in charity because I wanted to do something for other people. I felt, almost like, just to give you an extreme example, like every time I showed up with family members and friends, I would always make an effort to think about what they said the last time I met them to then tell them, oh, what happened with this? Because it was important to me that people felt that I cared, And it's something that I've always carried around with me and something my mother also saw in me. And when I eventually woke up a little bit after quitting, I revisited that. And then I was like, I have money, so I can do something with that money. I have nothing else. I felt really shitty at the time. So I picked up the phone and called 5 charities, and I was like, I'm going to give you 100,000 kroner, $15,000. But I want to give the money to a specific cause, and I also want to be able to experience it, seeing the impact, because I need to feel human again. It was like a need for me to reset myself and reconnect with myself. And all 5 of them said no to both questions. These are these larger, more known nonprofits, so like Red Barnet, Cancer and whatever. And the reason why is because they can't accommodate individuals and projects because there's so many donors, and it's like, hugely slow dinosaur process in these things. And the second part is that they don't let you travel anymore because it's bad. It's like the white, what do you call it? White privilege or whatever, like going down there and seeing the poor people.
Yeah.
So they've stopped doing that because it's for the bad of them, which I understand the logic behind, by the way. But it made me feel like shit, right? Because it's like, they don't even want my money. They basically rejected $15,000 like of my money. And so I ended up talking to Martin Krenk actually about that. And he suggested I talk to Pernille, the founder of Human Practice Foundation, which is, a foundation he's in the board of. And they build schools and have built hundreds of schools in Nepal and Kenya. And so they allowed me to build a computer lab, which was a small piece of the school, because usually it was these big school projects that these millionaire professionals from Danske Bank and Nordea, they would do, right? And I was allowed to build a computer lab, a small piece of it. And so what I did was I donated $15,000 to a computer lab in a school in the middle of nowhere in Nepal, 800 children. And then they had a partnership with a travel agency that they'd worked with for years, Kipling Travel, that have created these trips around your charity project, which I thought was quite interesting. So I paid for that that travel agency to build a custom journey for me to go to Nepal with my son, at that time 7 years old, to go to Nepal, hike the Himalayas for 3 days, and then end up at that school for the inauguration of the school and the computer lab. Something that they held not because here comes the white people, but because the village, they'd never had a school. They'd never had these tools, so they did it because they wanted to.
Wow.
And so they had flags everywhere, and like they had speeches, and the whole fucking village was there. I have really most amazing videos. And it was the first time where I was starting to see who I was, but also my son seeing me for who I am. Not only because we played Uno every day in the tent and ate so much popcorn, but also because he was there for the opening of the school and saw me do that, and reconnecting with me as a child with my son there was just like the most mind-blowing experience. It was like an accelerator of me waking up from slumber, as I might call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I journaled the whole trip. And when I came home, I was like, this experience is something that I wished was more easy to access. And I think it's holding a lot of people back that are wealthy, very busy, from giving back. And the more I unwrapped that whole process, I realized how bad charity really works nowadays. It's like the money is allocated by Western charities. Now we're getting very detailed, but like millions of dollars into Western charities, allocated and earmarked for certain purposes, sent to to these local charities that then distribute it. So it's very slow and ineffective in that sense. And all these smaller charities like Human Practice Foundation, they don't get as much publicity clearly because they're small. So it's a disconnect. The people that are doing the best work, I think, the smaller ones, are not getting the money for those causes. So, and then I also interviewed 30 travelers and found out that 29 out of 30 from doing structured interviews, they would go on a trip like this if they were offered it, but they're not. Meaning that they go on a trip to Nepal, stay at some luxury resort, say that they've had a cultural experience and they go home, but they're missing this feeling of actual connection, of taking their family out on something authentic, and doing something meaningful, which is what everyone craves these days, right? Because everyone is so busy hustling and not really living human life. And so what I'm doing right now, to get to the conclusion, as you can imagine, is that I want to build an attachment to high net worth individuals that go traveling to have these experiences. And what I want to do is I want to help them connect with local charities to cut out the middleman, which is the Western nonprofits. So the money goes directly to the hands of the people that need them and that know what they need. That could be bikes, for example, to get to school. Not necessarily building a school, but the bikes themselves. Only people on the ground in a specific commune knows that answer. And so what I want to do is I want to take these experts that are local, present these projects to people that are traveling, and then connect them. So you can imagine it's kind of like taking GoFundMe projects, right? But having it address specific, tying that with travelers that are coming up.
Having a mission, right? Having a problem that's kind of firing up right now in the village or the environment.
Yes. And having it be more agile, right? Which is what GoFundMe is so good about. It's like, it's more agile. It's like, right now we need books for this purpose, right? And
not 5 years later, we need it now.
Yes.
That's what happens with big corporates, perhaps charities, that it's very delayed.
It's very delayed. And then, the extreme example that I wanted to bring up, and this is a really cool story, is, and I've heard many of these, by the way, is that there was this woman I met, I don't remember her name, but she's from Kenya. And she grew up in a very poor village in Kenya. And she explained to me that she was an intern when she went to these small villages. And all these villages were getting these quarterly shipments of grain from UNICEF or whatever. And they'd been doing that for a decade. And what she explained was that people would walk for a half a day to get this food. And it become such a big reliance that if they cut that supply, people would starve. And what they really needed down there, and that's what she's been enforcing down there, is entrepreneurship, is helping them help themselves. Because when they become reliant, that's not a solution.
No.
But yet that money is because there's a lot of commercials from kids that look unhappy that are not eating. And so everyone's like, sure, they should have grain, but they don't consider the ramifications of it in the local scene. It's just an example. And the only way you solve that is by the money going directly locally, so they distribute it on the right things, like an entrepreneurship program.
Yeah.
So I believe that there's going to be an opportunity for like a gig economy, if you imagine that, for advisors and travelers that are now, like myself, fucking working like horses back in the day and want to connect with themselves again. The humanity that is a growing demand in travel agencies that they've also confirmed to me. So tying that together somehow is my vision for what this could do. And it's tied directly to who I am. And so people might say, when I say this or when they watch this, like, oh, white privilege, or,
Yeah.
but what about these people that are doing it from ego?
Hmm.
And as long as I deep down know I'm doing it for the right reasons, that could be the case. But over time, my idea is to educate people on this and allow it to be a way for people to come back to their humanity, to make us more global citizens, not for the white man to come down and look and feel good about themselves and put it on Instagram. That's not the purpose. It's about disrupting that entire flow and making that money more efficient. And yes, there will be people that do it for the wrong reasons, but that could be an opening gate for them to actually come to realize how they're not living their lives at themselves, is my hope. So it's kind of like, and that's why I love the idea, because it's on that like borderline of that, which I love, like that, that's what's exciting about entrepreneurship, I think.
What are the major challenges right now for you while building this company? Because it's kind of feel that you need to find the right partners to work with to make it happen, right? Then there are a lot of different nonprofits that already kind of share the division among lands and countries and main partner suppliers and so on. So what's the biggest problems or challenges you're facing while building this?
So the first thing why I'm smiling is because I want to ask you, why do you believe that is a problem right now?
I'm not sure if that's a problem, but potentially that's my perhaps perspective of what I experienced collaborating with some nonprofits and seeing their work. That's become very inefficient, and it's a lot of division between who is owning which area and who is distributing what. And if someone can bring more value, they're not necessarily going to allow you because it's already predefined structure.
But I understand where you're coming from with it. I have those same perceptions. But where I am right now, the reason why I asked you the question is I think my experience as an entrepreneur is that, yes, there are all those things, but that has to come later. What I'm focused on right now is, to answer your question, is culture of my company. Making sure that I have the right people involved in solving the problem in a way that fits the lifestyle I have, but also the mindset that I hold dear. And I want to build a proof of concept because I know I don't have all the answers, but the best way to figure that out is by doing it. So the whole idea to me right now is to build a proof of concept with my co-founder using her 20, 30 clients as a way for us to upsell it to see, are they even fucking interested in that? Will they actually transfer money? Validating it before I start exploring these and maybes that, there are tons of problems in this space, just to say. Like, you're right about those things.
But I'm jumping already straight into this big vision and that 5 steps ahead, then I should start from the smaller steps.
What kills most startups before it's even started is this lack of focus. I've seen it so many times. It's like, yes, I understand there's risks on all these fronts, but you know what? The best way for me to actually show up is by not letting those things distract me, right? So I'm laser focused on knowing the foundation needs to be proper, like the culture needs to be proper. The approach that I take needs to be slow and really thought through so I don't miss anything. And the more I worry about that, and like I can research all kinds of shit and like I can talk to all kinds of people, but it will just deteriorate a lot of my focus and it will hold me back. So my biggest concern right now, to answer the question, is can I withstand like the lifestyle that I've built right now, which is that I don't work very much, that I spend a lot of time on myself, that I have time for coaching, exercise, mental well-being. I go for a fucking massage once a week. Like all these things to take care of myself, that I build a culture where that is expected of everyone. What I mean by that is everyone is focusing on taking care of themselves. And as a consequence, that those hours we work are 10 times more efficient. That's way more important to me. And that's what I want to build. And I want to make sure I can have that kind of culture because otherwise I'm not interested. I want to build a culture where I can show up as my best self and I want to enable other people to do that. And this is my belief, right? So that's what I'm 110% focused on right now and worried about, by the way, that if I can do it.
What are you worried? For me, I guess the worry, what you're saying, it's kind of sounds even a bit futuristic in a way, taking into consideration how fast-paced we are in our work environments nowadays. Then if we look into the startups and businesses, we always tend to hear the best day to start was yesterday, and you're not moving fast enough, you're too slow. And in your case, you're taking a completely opposite approach. Slow, reflective, really focusing on the foundation of organization, the inner purpose. But is it enough nowadays to, let's say, I don't like the word compete, but to play similar game in such a fast-paced environment? And also seeing all this buzz with the AI and optimization and agents. Oh, we have AI, we can be even more productive because we can do even more things. What's your take on that? Are you not scared of being too slow?
No, not really, actually. I think it's the opposite. I find, and this is like, there's been so much talk about this over the last months, right, and years, right, about AI, right? But what it's giving is people a chance to be 100 times more effective with the time that they actually give, meaning it opens up a lot of free time. And I can tell you this, and I'm just going to be blatantly honest with you. I know a handful, if not more people, that work 4 hours a week and deliver way more than a full-time employee would ever do. Why? Because they're using all these tools at their disposal, right? And so what happens then if you actually just accept that that's happening? And those hours outside of those 4 hours, that you don't say, hey, work 8 hours, doubled up your efforts, but actually say, what happens if those hours you actually say, you know what? You deserve to take care of yourself to make those 4 hours even more efficient. Because at that time, you're chasing, figuring out, oh, what actually makes me interested? It's like, what can optimize my way of doing X, Y, and Z, whether it's physical, whatever. What does that do to those 4 hours? Does it make it 2 hours? Does it make it 1 hour? I honestly believe, and this is what scares the shit out of a lot of people, I think, that are working in corporate, by the way, is that that's where the world is going. And that's the expectation people are starting to have. So, you know, people that I've talked to that are in college, for example, they don't expect to have a full-time job. You know, none of them do. Why? Because they've come to realize that they can actually have 5 jobs if they want. They can have 1 job. You know, they're not going to take bullshit from this corporate culture that we have, right? And that's exciting. But I believe that if I'm one of the people that do it this way now, I will be one of the first people that take that step where everyone else will follow. That's my belief. That's where the world is going. So I'd rather be ahead of that than behind it, right? And also it gives me a shitload of freedom to do exactly what I want.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't believe for a fucking second what people they say to that. But that's because they're all so fucking sure occupied with what's happened in the past. But the world is so fucking different now. It really is. Like,
extremely. AI tools are, if you know how to use it wise, game changer. Okay, I have a few more questions for you. We're really going to the end. It's fine. One of them would be about you sharing right now this whole kind of Tim Ferriss vibe, 4 hours work week, productivity, etc. But coming from the entrepreneurial hustler mentality, have you experienced when you were transitioning towards more inner self and values, that moment when you have this something in the back of your head, oh, I'm not working enough, oh, it's not enough, because you're coming from those, I assume, also 12-hour days at least, by grinding and thinking that the longer I work, the better founder, better results and everything. Did you have to transition that the amount of hours does not define how good you are as a own employee, or for you it came naturally by understanding inner self?
It was from quitting, right? And then reflecting about my experience, right? And I even put a post out the other day about a guy that I worked with that told me his dad had died from, if you saw that.
I saw it actually.
But that was a reflection about something that happened where I looked at it from a different lens, right? Where it was like saying, this guy asked for 1 day off, right? To go home when his dad died. You know, it's fucked up to me. When you look at it. At the time, I didn't think it was fucked up because I was like, okay, he seems like he's okay. So that's fine. He's okay. But I still encouraged him to take a week off, and his productivity skyrocketed by 3 times because he came back, felt loyal, and felt like he had actually offloaded a lot of the things in his mind, even though I would argue that a week was definitely not enough considering what he was going through. So it got like submerged behind a lot of shit back here. And so what I mean is that, like, if you look at that as an example, it's just an example of what happens when you actually give capacity to people, you know? But what happens if you give immense freedom and capacity to people and you actually trust people to get their work done, looking at the outcomes, not the hours? What happens? And what I found over the last year, the perfect example being the LinkedIn practice I have, is like, and also my startup, by the way, is like when I work few hours, those 1 or 2 or 3 hours that I do work are fucking the most productive I've ever worked in my entire life. And everyone might look at this and say, well, Philip's full of shit, you know, and whatever, like.
Yeah.
But it's because they are so occupied with what they believe to be true based on their learned experience, because they haven't tried it. And I've tried it. So my biggest proof is not necessarily the startup, like the actual solution of the startup. It's proving what I can do with this company, right? That, and to myself, because if I stand here in a year or 2 and I've actually succeeded, it will be my massive, it will be my biggest fucking achievement in life.
What would you define as success in 2 years and that we celebrate?
That I've kept to my guns, and like I'm still doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm showing up as my best self, not working a lot on hours, being super efficient, and that I have people around me that I love being around, and that I can pay my bills with my business. And I think that to me is the best place to start, because if I focus on building a large business and lots of income, the risks will be that will be the reason I am doing it, and not because I like it and I enjoy it and I want to have cool people around me, which I think is the key to success, inner purpose, making sure that it actually comes from a place of entrepreneurship is who I am. Like I know you now, right? It fits to all my strengths. The idea itself and the problem fits to all my strengths. That is my achievement. You know, I if it fails, I don't give a shit, actually. That's not the point. The point is, I know I'm a creator. I enjoy that. And it comes from a deep centered place of purpose.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy no matter what happens.
Beautiful. And before we started the recording, we also touched based on co-founder, but you right now have a co-founder. First, you were a solo wolf, and we spoke a bit. All right, so what about having a team? Do you feel like you're missing or not? And I said, no, I'm fine working by myself, but there is a co-founder now joining. When did you realize that that would be great to have someone in the team who shares the mission?
First of all, I feel like you're part of my team. I feel like everybody's part of my team, right? So I don't need a co-founder. Like that's not what I would get it for. I would get a co-founder because it adds and makes it more fun for me. And that it adds value to me. And so I've talked to, I think, over the last year, it must be hundreds, if not thousands of people, and many of which had beautiful CVs. Like you wouldn't imagine some of the people I've talked to. And then this girl, she wrote me on LinkedIn, this is a while back, and she just, on the words that she wrote, seemed so freaking authentic to me. Had a background in travel, in philanthropy. Many of the things that I don't have, by the way. I haven't been in the travel agency. I haven't done philanthropy. I have my experience of it. And so I ended up taking a walk with her and had immense chemistry with her. Like she, from the second she showed up, was herself 110%. And we had great chemistry in that sense. And then I felt like I could be myself with her as well. And she compliments me in so many ways. And so I just felt like, okay, this actually makes me feel good. And on paper, it makes sense. And actually my intuition is this could work. And on paper, like I mentioned to you on LinkedIn, maybe she has 400, 500 followers. You know, like she's basically an untapped A player. She's somebody that has not been given the chance to fulfill her potential. And she believes the world to be the same way that I do it culturally. And so I know for a fact that this person can become what people would see. Oh, wow, what a fucking A-player success story. But it's, there's many of these people out there. But the problem is they don't get that chance of and that freedom to be themselves and express themselves and be in a good culture. So I'm really excited to have her aboard. Like, she's going to be a machine in the good sense, not like hustling, but a machine in approaching tasks in the same exact way that I wanna, which is from a place of meaning and purpose.
Beautiful.
So I'm really excited. And LinkedIn gave me that. That's pretty amazing, right? I mean,
it is a great tool if you use it with the right intentions.
Yeah.
And
people are listening, right?
yeah. And I think people can see what's real, what's not, and what's generated, what's coming from within. All right. I think we could continue and continue, but we covered a lot, and I think different sides of you and your journey.
Yeah.
And thank you for showing up so openly in this conversation and sharing from the roots, from where you come from, what you live right now about, what do you care about, what you're building. I have this closing tradition on the podcast to leave the listeners with a thought to ponder through the day after the episode. And that thought could be anything. It could be a question. It could be something you are trying to answer for yourself, and completely free canva. Or maybe the question you've been being bothered in the last month and would be relevant to the audience to think about. And do you have any question?
I think I have to really think about this one, because I think one thing I would do is tease people a little bit, if I may.
Let's go.
So I think the first question I would say is, who were you as a child? If you were to go back and say, who were you as a child? When you were innocent and didn't have all the cultural impact, who were you? And then who are you now? What are you still that person? Are you still acting out that person? And I think a lot of people will find that it's very different, and they'll defend it by saying, oh, it's because you changed your perception over life and stuff. But no, we're always that person. And the more we step away from that, the further we step away from our inner purpose. So I would argue, I think a lot of people need to sit down and actually think about that. And I know that 9 out of 10, if not more people, will answer that they are. But if they actually spend some time sitting and thinking about it, they're not. And it's holding them back. I really believe that it was holding me back. And I'm hoping more people will listen and actually listen to themselves, I
think that's a great way to end this episode. Philip, thank you so much for finding time this beautiful Monday. I hope everyone, you made it till the end, you enjoyed the episode, and till next time, see you next week. And I'll leave the links in the show notes so you can learn more about Philip and his work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zivile.